Hello, welcome to Leadership Trail Mix. Today we'll be talking about something that means a lot of things. I remember over a decade ago, when I lived in the UK to learn English, using the word fired for whenever someone was let go by an organization, and very soon I learned the term made redundant, which is basically another way for a company to tell an employee that there is no need for their role anymore. The redundancy I'm going to be talking today, however, has nothing to do with employment. Actually, no, it does have to do with employment, since leadership has everything to do with employment, and this is a podcast about leadership, right? But the redundancy I want to talk about today is the one I learned from Brene during a keynote I had the opportunity, or even better, the honor, to attend back in April. Brene, when talking about supporting her team and using that magical question I introduced on episode 13, remember? What does support from me look like right now? In that same keynote, she kept using the word redundancy. Oh, maybe there was no redundancy. Oh, maybe there was a lack of redundancy. And I was like scratching my head and thinking, what on earth are you talking about here, Brene? Well, I did some digging, and I think I now understand what she meant. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. When she talks about redundancy, she's referring to the ability to duplicate system components to ensure that a system can continue to function even if a part fails, which is, by the way, very connected to the idea of fixing it that I covered on episode 23. And this was the last plug to another episode today, I promise. Let's be honest, we live in a world where companies and teams are expected to do more and more with less. There is this idea of being as lean as possible and eliminating redundancy. However, my invitation for us is to reflect on where is redundancy actually necessary? How can we determine that? How can we assess that? How can we implement it? So, let me start by saying that I don't think that we can dream of redundancy of roles for most organizations, expecting them to have two people doing exactly the same job or just kind of redoing each other's job for the sake of minimizing risks. However, similarly to the process of delegating, I do believe that we need to look at the concept of redundancy through the lenses of processes and tasks, not roles. Many times, we look at every single aspect of one person's job as equally important, but in reality, we all know it's not true. There are some aspects of our jobs that are very critical and that involve risk and money and investment and also skills and capabilities and expertise that sometimes we are the only ones who possess them. But everyone's roles have pieces of the job that are crucial for the execution of the whole work, but that in itself are very, very operational, repetitive, not critical at all. Actually, answering the first question about how to define where to implement redundancy, we need to break down the responsibilities of the job into tasks and classify those tasks as critical input to critical process, or just non-critical at all. By doing so, you're going to understand what are the things that you do every day and honestly, don't need to be perfect, and you may be pushing yourself hard for self-imposed deadlines and an inflated criteria of what success looks like. We are not going to talk about the non-critical bucket today, okay? We will talk about the other two. Starting with the input to critical bucket, take a deeper look. Are all of these tasks truly input to a critical process? And if so, is there any risk to the critical task if this input fails? Or is not 100% accurate or is late? If so, then that activity is in the right bucket. If not, you may move it to the non-critical one. Okay, critical bucket now. Are these deliverables very critical or really critical? If the answer is yes, then ask yourself, what would be the impact if this task failed, was not 100% accurate, or was delayed? Classify ones that truly would have a financial impact, an effectiveness impact, or an efficiency impact. You can use a number scale, a color code, whatever works for you. For those classified as higher risk, they might be the ones that require redundancy. And while in the past redundancy could only be achieved by having more people or having the eyes of another person on a piece of work, that's not what the present and the future holds for us. Let's talk about AI. Starting from the very beginning, as someone who grew up watching Terminator, I was very scared of AI. But I soon realized that AI is one of those things that you can't go back from. It's here, and it's here to stay. And in fact, if used well, and by well I mean responsibly and ethically, it can be of great help. For the first few months of this AI boom, I tried to stay as further away from it as I could, but I'm a user now, and I have already got burned. My mistake was that I trusted AI too much and didn't have a redundancy system in place, which, in that case, and in my experience in most cases, was basically myself. It was not something critical. No one lost their jobs. No one lost any cent because of it. But I learned the lesson that I could ask AI to execute the task, but I still need to be the redundancy system in place. I recently got exposed to Harfoush, a digital anthropologist and New York Times best-selling author who is an innovation, digital cultures, and future of work expert, and her ideas were so eye-opening to me. Two of the most powerful quotes I heard from her were these two. The first one is, AI will supercharge deep expertise but collapse weak knowledge systems. Let me say it again. AI will supercharge deep expertise but collapse weak knowledge systems. And the second quote is this one. Technology is the manifestation of belief systems. Looking at the first one, the message I hear is AI can create the most amazing business plan or marketing campaign for you. But who can say if that's a good plan or campaign? Well, you can. I personally don't know where technology will go from here, but I'm pretty confident it will develop exponentially. What I personally know is that at this point in time, we will need to be the judges. And I say so because of the second quote from Rahaf on belief systems. It's still our responsibility to use our expertise to assess if the results AI is producing are aligned to the beliefs of our society and our organizations. Because guess what? AI can hallucinate and provide you answers that are not real. Or I'd say even worse, AI can produce answers that reflect a status quo that you as a leader or your organization is constantly and intentionally challenging. AI is not the answer for everything, but it may be the answer for a few things. For that to be true, there is of course the need of a mindset change when it comes to the usage of AI. If we believe that AI is going to take our jobs away, it's going to be hard to trust it as the executor of the task and having us as the redundancy system. If we believe that everything we do have to be perfect, it's going to be hard. If we think we have to do everything, we have a problem. Here are some stats from a recent Gartner survey for us. CEOs expect AI to increase productivity in more than 17%. Still, 1 in 5 employees say the technology adopted by their company in the past 2 years made their job harder. And when we dig a bit deeper, survey shows that 41% of the time employees are saving using AI is being wasted. And only 51% of employees feel equipped to respond to unexpected changes in their work. And I'd say that it's hard to ignore that AI is one of them, right? So, as you can see, unless we change our approach, these numbers are telling us that things won't work. Funny enough, the same way technology has its own belief systems, so do we in our organizations. And in the same way that AI requires redundancy systems, so do our people. Not necessarily on checking on the work they are doing, but by checking what type of work they are doing and setting the right expectations on what the outcome should look like, instead of allowing employees to act on autopilot, on what I would call workplace trauma, which can, by the way, be experienced or inherited. What I mean by that is that I've seen people step into their first job ever saying, I heard from my grandpa that when you are asked to do something at work, you just do it without asking questions. I've seen executives saying, I learned early on in my career that the only way to get things done right is to do it myself. I hear these things and I see trauma in capital letters flashing in red in front of my eyes. And these are just 2 examples of narratives that need to be challenged. There are many others out there. And while sometimes similar, they are as unique as our fingerprints. The world has changed. Workplaces, cultures are different. And if we keep thinking and working the same way, it won't be sustainable from a well-being perspective and from an organizational effectiveness point of view too. The machine is going to break because expectations on productivity will be higher. And as the quote often attributed to Albert Einstein says, Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Leading people is an honor. And with great honors come great responsibility. I'd say that the greatest of these responsibilities is meeting people where they are and supporting their uniqueness. All right, call to action time. Can you identify one person on your team that will benefit from assessing their tasks from a criticality point of view and go on to help them identify tasks that would benefit from having a redundancy system? And here is the call to action related to yourself. Can you identify on your routine opportunities to leverage AI as the doer so that you can be the redundancy agent? In my experience, meeting notes is the one that I'm a big fan of. But I've used it for job descriptions, questionnaires. I'm sure you'll find a use case that will allow you to lead by example. Just do it. That's all for today. If you have any thoughts to share about this episode, send me an email, miguel@leadershiptrailmix.com. Also, if you want to support this podcast, please share it. Recommend it to people in your network. Thank you for listening. Take care and talk soon.